Okay, so I'm making the tunic from the Great British Sewing Bee book, and I already wrote a blog post about making this top because I really struggled the first time around with step 7, which is sewing the interfacing to the tunic around the armholes. The instructions in the book really aren't very clear, so I attempted to explain how I finally worked out how to do it, but I figured it would be easier to also do a video, so it's a bit more visual. So I've got to this stage where I'm at the end of step 6, so I've got my tunic and I've got the interfacing sewn around the neckline, which you can see here, and now I need to do the armholes. So I've pressed the interfacing to the tunic and it's wrong side to wrong side, as you can see. And here is the armhole I'm going to be working on first of all. So I find it easiest, it says to start at the shoulder seam. I think some people find it easier to start at the bottom of the armhole, but you are supposed to start at the shoulder seam, so that's what I'm going to try and do. So you kind of have to fold the interfacing and the tunic towards each other so you can line up the top of the armhole. And then if you kind of fold it in on itself and then move the tunic round, so you start to get a wrong side to a wrong side, but then you have a clear edge to sew on. So you can see at the top here, I've still got these lined up, and try and keep your thumb on that so you can keep it going. And here now I've got the loose hole of the interfacing around the armhole, and I'm going to flip that over here so it's sort of folded over on itself. And here is my top of the arm seam, shoulder seam, and if you sort of pinch that together and then you can pull this around, so this is going to be the edge that I'm going to start sewing down, and this hopefully will make more sense once I start sewing it. So you can kind of pull it loose a bit, but you can see it at the shoulder seam here, it's all bunched up, and I think this is really impossible to pin. I think you just have to sew it free and hope for the best. So I'm going to set up the sewing machine now. Okay, so here I've got the armhole, the top of the armhole at the shoulder seam underneath the presser foot here. So as you can see, all under here, it's all quite bunched together, so you have to be quite careful to not catch it. And as you can see, I haven't pinned, so this is my tunic on the bottom layer and my interfacing on the top layer. And I'm just going to go quite slowly and make sure that I keep the two edges together. And you will see that I'm stopping quite frequently to reposition and just continually make sure that I'm not catching any bits that I don't want to catch, but also keeping things nice and neatly together. And here you can see I'm quite rapidly coming around to the bottom of the armhole, and you can see there that my two bottom of the armhole section line up quite nicely, so that's quite satisfying. And here it gets a bit fiddly because you've kind of, well, the whole thing is fiddly to be honest, but even more fiddly because of course as you sew round you have less and less sort of space and movement in the fabric to play with. You just kind of have to keep teasing it out and teasing it back round. And here you can see already we've come back round to the shoulder seam where we started. And this I found really fiddly to keep flat. And so now if I feed it back round, one of the criticisms of this top is that the bottom of the interfacing really doesn't have much space, much excess underneath the arm, and that's true. So here you can see this is my tunic wrong side out, and there is the armhole seam we've just sewn.